about stress management and stress relief. As I have said in some of my other videos, the whole point of me starting this channel was to intertwine ASMR and well-being, hence the name. And as I've already mentioned, I think ASMR is brilliant to help people with their well-being, such as sleeping better, relaxing, managing stress. And so I thought it would be a good topic to discuss, and I feel I do have quite a bit to say on the topic, so hopefully it'll be interesting and helpful, or if not, just simply relaxing and potentially create some tingles. I just want to put in a disclaimer before I go on. Although I do have some experience in terms of well-being and stress management within my working life, I want to make it very clear that obviously I am not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist or a mental health practitioner, so I just want to put that disclaimer in that please do not take anything that I say as a means of treatment or anything. Please do go and see a medical professional. This is just in terms of an ASMR relaxation video, and shouldn't be used instead of any kind of actual medical treatment, obviously. I just wanted to put that in. But yeah, going forward, let me open the can of Pepsi Max. I'll just do a few little taps. I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of taps on a can, but I know some people do like that. And actually, before I do pour this out, just one last kind of caveat. Sorry for making this introduction quite long, but one last thing I just did want to say is thank you so much to everyone who has just subscribed since my last video. I had a few more people who have subscribed now, and a few likes and comments, and it honestly, it really makes me so happy, and I'm pleased that people are enjoying these videos, and I do sort of see the feedback in terms of, I think my last video got quite a lot more engagement than some of my others, so that's good to know that that type of video is liked maybe more than some other things. So yeah, it's really interesting, and as I've said, I'm honestly so grateful for anyone who has watched these videos, liked them, commented and subscribed, so thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to open the can now. If it doesn't sound very nice, I will edit it out, but I'm hoping it won't be too loud. There we go. Okay. Like I was saying, Pepsi Max is my favourite drink. I actually drink too much of these, and I am in the position where I'm starting to decrease it, mainly because I've had to have a few trips to the dentist. Obviously, drinking fizzy drinks, we know, isn't good for our teeth. But yeah, one of my favourite drinks. Okay, so getting into the main part of the video. So let's talk about stress. Now, first of all, when I do talk about sort of stress and how to manage it, I do like to remind people that actually stress isn't always bad. There's a bit of a sometimes misconception that stress is only a bad thing, whereas actually a little bit of stress can be very useful for us, and in two ways. Well, there's probably more than two, but the two I'll talk about. Firstly, it actually is really important for our survival. So if we go back and think of evolutionary times, when there was a stressor, say a predator, our body section and go into something called the fight or flight mode, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, which enables us to either fight the predator, the attacker, or flight, run away from. So, just to kind of go into a bit more detail about the fight or flight mode, what happens is our heart rate goes up when we're stressed, and we might notice that actually in just day to day, if we're feeling stressed, we might have a higher heart rate, or if you go to the doctors and they do your blood pressure and it's higher than usual, it can be because you're stressed in that environment, but your heart goes faster, beats faster. The reason for this is because your blood needs to be pumped quicker around your body so it can deliver oxygen to your working muscles so they can contract aerobically. Now, that means that obviously you can run away quicker or you can fight because of the contraction of muscles. Also, your breathing rate goes up because you tend to obviously need to take in more oxygen and breathe out more carbon dioxide. Same with your blood pressure going up. You also sometimes can feel more sort of sweaty because you're getting put ready for exercise. Quite often you can only focus on the stressor, and that's why when we're stressed, quite often we can't seem to think about other things. We just keep thinking about the thing that's stressing us. It's like it doesn't leave our mind. Also, some other things happen in terms of the fact that sometimes we feel like we need to go to the toilet, and that's because technically our body wants to be lighter so it can run away quicker from that predator. So in this situation we can see stress is actually quite useful. It enables us to save our lives, and actually in present day that can also be the same situation, because obviously if I'm walking through a dark street at night with my handbag and someone tries to steal it, this fight or flight mode might come in and instantly I can defend myself or run away. And same with the fact if we're driving and then like a deer comes out in front or an animal, and we can slam on our brakes really quickly, and again that's like that instant impulse from a stress situation. So those are kind of like the evolutionarily ingrained stressor response into us for our survival. So when our body perceives danger, we get that release of adrenaline, which is a hormone that enables us to have that fight or flight response. The other reason that stress can actually help us a little bit is because if you imagine we're not stressed, we're actually got no kind of pressure on us, no accountability, but we've got a task that needs to be done. If there's no stress pushing us to do that task, quite often we would leave it longer than, let's say, there was a deadline and there was an accountability and say like potentially a punishment if we didn't do it. Now that can cause us to obviously focus more and get the job done quicker because we've got that bit of stress. Say it's like your manager saying, right, this has to be done by this point or you'll be in trouble at work, and that can enable us to perform a bit better. Or actually another example is like if someone was a musician going on stage, obviously they're a bit stressed about how the audience will find them, so again that gets them in that focused pressurized response. We could use so many examples, like athletes before a game or a fight or something. Again, it's that kind of accountability. There's a bit of stress going on and it can help us perform better than if we're just not bothered. However, the problem is that we can get into stress. So if you think about the good parts of stress, we'd call that eustress, and then we can get into distress. Now, distress in that section is where we're too stressed, and even though we might have those benefits of just focusing on the stressor, getting pumped to do the best we can, we actually now have gone too far and are getting panicky, really anxious, really worried, and may have like a panic attack or feel like we can't do the thing that we were going to do because we've basically stepped over that kind of line of good stress to bad stress. And the thing that I always say is that when we are in that section of distress, whatever the trigger is, we're kind of still getting the same response, and that's why I do like to take the stigma away from stress and anxiety and things like that, because your body is reacting in the same way that if that predator chasing us or behind us or putting us in danger. So we're literally, our body is in that scenario that it thinks it's in danger. So even stressed and anxious if I'm driving somewhere I don't know, whereas my husband doesn't care. You could say to him, drive to Scotland right now, and he would have no worries, whereas if I had to drive somewhere actually quite local to me, if I hadn't done the journey before, I would notice that stress response. Same with the fact that some people really struggle with, say, leaving their house. That can be really stressful for them, or maybe going on a certain transport like flying or going on a train. There can be so many reasons why people are stressed, and for other people it might not cause that stress response. But whatever the trigger is, obviously we can feel like we're in danger, and that's why it can feel so hard to deal with. Okay, so now we're going to talk about potentially ways that stress can affect us, and then we'll go on and talk about how we can potentially manage this stress. So, stress can affect us all in different ways, and I always do say, though, again, just putting in this caveat, if you do have any of these sort of signs of stress, they can potentially be other things. So I always do say, make sure you've checked that it's not something else from your doctor. But things like not being able to sleep, or having an upset stomach, like IBS is quite related to stress, or things like, as we mentioned, rapid heart rate, sweaty palms, things like not being able to concentrate, or feeling clumsy because you're focusing on the stressor so much that you're not concentrating on other things, so sort of knock into things and drop things. Feeling a little bit maybe more sensitive, maybe crying more, or for some people becoming maybe a little bit more angry. So there's lots of sort of ways that stress can manifest in different people. Some people feel like they want to isolate themselves, which I always say is not the best thing to do. Try and keep, obviously, connection with others, even if it's just like an emotional connection. But yeah, some people do struggle in terms of even like physical things, like getting pain, like headaches or migraines, or eating. Sometimes people lose their appetite, sometimes people eat more and feel hungry more, and we are all different, and our behaviours due to stress can sometimes vary as well. But if you notice these things, sometimes it's important to kind of like take a step back mentally and think to oneself, oh, maybe this is because I'm a bit stressed, and then have a think, is there something that has triggered that stress, and how can I solve it or manage it? And this leads on to talking about stress management in itself. So I tend to have this sort of, maybe it sounds a little bit blunt thought process about things that I'm stressed about. I tend to think I have sort of choices, and one of the choices is problem solving. So if I've got something that I'm stressed about, really simply put, and I know life isn't this easy, but if I'm stressed about a job, then to problem solve it, maybe it is to change jobs, to leave that job and get another job. Now obviously I am totally aware that that's not that simple to do, but very, very simply put as an example, if work was stressing someone out, then maybe to problem solve that, they might need to change something about their work. Maybe it's getting more support with it, I don't know, maybe it's going on a training thing, maybe it's changing careers, it could be anything, but that would be like problem solving it. Or say, if someone was worried that, I don't know, their child wasn't doing well in school, problem solving it could be helping them with their homework, or speaking to the teachers, or trying to find a way to assist them with their learning. So there's lots and lots of examples of methods of problem solving it, where you think about the stress itself, the things that are making you stressed, and how do you solve that problem. Now sometimes we can't do that, so sometimes we need to decide to accept the stressor. Now when we're accepting a stressor, quite often we need to try and change the emotions that we have towards it. stress and an emotional way of dealing with stress, because all our thoughts affect our emotions, and those emotions do affect how we behave. So if we're thinking about stress and obviously the feelings involved in that, the emotions, what we might need to do is reevaluate our thoughts about the stressor to therefore give us different emotions. I hope that kind of makes sense. If we go back to the work or job example that I gave, talking about the problem solving, if we can't problem solve, so let's say we can't change anything about the situation, we can't leave the job or moving departments, or there's nothing that can be problem solved. So the way to alter your emotions about it is to reevaluate the thought process concerning it. So even small things, saying to yourself like, I accept the fact that this is stressful, but I am human, all I can do is my best. So in terms of, if you've got too much work, literally saying to yourself, there are only so many hours in the day and I'm choosing to do this amount, is like taking power over it. And even saying to yourself, I know it's not possible to get all this done, I'm just going to do as much as I can do. This isn't the best job, but I'm earning a salary. Or this is stressful, but my commute is easy to work. Or I'm stressed over this, but at least I've got a colleague that I'm friends with. Where we're just trying to explain to ourselves how it isn't potentially as negative as we think. And reevaluating those thought processes can help give us just a slightly more neutral emotion. So it's more like cognitive thought process around the stressor, as well as trying to do something called emotional hijacking, where we alter our emotions concerning the stressor. So if you can't change the job itself, you can change how you feel about the job. I am realistic though, I know it's not easy, and I know some days we can still feel stressed and upset about things, but it's trying to get the overall more of a neutral or positive way, which can therefore help manage how much stress we have towards it. And a lot of the time we do get stressed because we put importance on things. So if we put less importance on the stressor, then quite often it seems less difficult to tackle. So one example is when someone can't sleep, so they're struggling with sleeping, the more and more someone is stressed and worried about the fact they can't sleep, the more they cannot sleep. So just say to yourself, it doesn't matter, so what, I'll be tired tomorrow, and the worst thing that will happen is I'll be sleepy the next day, and I can manage that. So you kind of explain to yourself that maybe the thing that you're stressed about isn't as important as we think it is. So if you can't problem solve, then it is looking at being able to accept a thing that can't be changed. If we keep worrying about it and stressing about it and it cannot be changed, it is just wasted energy. The other option is avoidant. So for an example, you can try and distract yourself, where this isn't problem solving the stressor, this isn't necessarily accepting it. You're going to choose to do something that can help you distract your thoughts from it. And this can include maybe listening to music, relaxation music, maybe doing some form of exercise, because that does increase the happy hormones, endorphins, that can make you feel much better. Speaking to friends, particularly ones who are supportive and can help distract you. Maybe doing a hobby that you enjoy. It could simply be like baking a cake or reading a book or watching your favourite programme. I think a lot of people feel guilty about leisure time. I think sometimes people feel like they should always be productive, whereas actually you sort of read around the field of well-being, you can see that actually doing things that make you feel content and happy, just taking a bit of time for yourself, can help with you managing stress, because it is that sort of moment that you can recharge. Okay, so we've gone through potential ways of managing stress in terms of problem solving the stressor. Emotionally focused on reevaluating our thoughts to change our emotions about the stressor, how we feel about the stressor. And then avoiding the stress, so choosing to do something that can take our mind off it. Now, another one which I always like has a mechanism behind it in terms of a biological sense. So breathing exercises, I think a lot of people have heard about them, but if you do some deep breathing, where say you breathe in for 6 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and you breathe out for 8 seconds. If you do this, it can help because it can bring down your heart rate, bring down your breathing rate, and bring down your blood pressure, and can help you get back into a more relaxed state physically, and then that will can lead into mentally you feel a bit better, because sometimes when we're in that panic, quite often we can't think clearly and get ourselves back into that position. So doing the breathing exercises, the reason I've used them before when I've got myself all stressed. If I do some deep breathing, it can really help. And like I said, I tend to don't believe things unless there's a mechanism behind it, because association doesn't always mean causation, whereas if there's like a mechanism that I can trust, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, with the breathing exercises, I used to be someone, when someone said I'll do some deep breathing, and I'm like, how's that gonna help anything? It does, it really does. Next time you're feeling your heart rate go up and you're a bit stressed, do some deep breathing. And there's ones on YouTube that guide you, there's guided relaxation, and quite often you can feel so much better after, because you get yourself out of that distress section and into more maybe sort of eustress or a calmer mode to be in. Also, you can do something such as guided imagery, where you think about like a happy place, and that happy place could be anything. For me, it'd probably be like a beach with a nice sea and sand and palm trees and blue sky. For someone like my husband, it would probably be like greenery. He loves like fields or climbing mountains or out in nature. For someone who likes reading, it might be in a library with a crackling fire and nice books. With potentially it snowing outside, you could create a really nice scenery in your brain. And then what I would say is try, whilst doing your breathing exercises, just be there, think of that happy place and imagine yourself there, and just it takes yourself out of the current stressful situation. Okay, gonna take another drink. So, one other thing that I did want to talk about stress, I think this is a hard one for a lot of people, knowing when you've reached capacity. So, I'm going to give like an example. If you imagine a bridge, bridges don't tend to just collapse randomly on their own. Usually there's signs before they collapse, such as like creaking of the bridge, or like swaying of the bridge. It's kind of like before it happens, there are signs that it might happen soon, like creaking, buckling, swaying, all these types of things. Now, if you imagine yourself as a bridge and you think the bridge collapse is like the panic attack, quite often before we get into that panicky sensation, there are signs before it. And I would also say a good thing with stress is to recognise those signs. So for an example, I think my mum will get the startings of a migraine, and she'll literally say, oh, I think I might be a bit stressed. Or some people might have like stomach upset and they might think, oh, I must be getting a bit stressed. And for someone like me, it's if I can't sleep, I notice if I'm not sleeping, I think, oh, there must be something that I must be sort of wondering about subconsciously. So I would say start to recognise your signs. If it is the heart rate and the breathing rate, the sweaty palms and feeling tense in your muscles, because the fight or flight response might also start to happen, that's where I say just notice it's happening. What can we do to stop the bridge collapsing? What can we do to stop the panic? Breathing exercise is a great idea, or avoidant in terms of going to do something to take your mind off it, or is it the problem solving once you're calmer? So I think that was kind of like an overall of stress. Just to kind of conclude before I go, stress isn't always bad. A little bit of stress can be a good thing, but too much stress can really, really affect us both mentally and physically. If someone is, really struggling with stress and can't manage it, then I always advise speaking to the GP or, getting some mental health support. But there are ways that, if it's not too bad stress, we can sort of manage day-to-day stresses. And from my opinion, that's either problem solving the stressor, accepting the stressor, and changing our emotions and our thoughts about the stressor, or avoiding the stressful situation for a bit and distracting yourself with something you enjoy doing. Also, relaxation techniques like guided imagery and breathing exercises can be really beneficial. And just reminding ourselves that stress is a natural human response, and it's normal, but we need to know how to manage it. Otherwise, obviously, it can really affect us and make us not feel as content and happy in life. And then just the other thing that obviously I talked about was, thinking about the importance of leisure time, which can help us manage our stress, doing things we enjoy, so we can be a bit more mentally resilient during the stressful, productive times. And the self-care, I always do say this, obviously within my work, and I do practice what I preach, where you can't expect to feel good if you're not eating well, moving and sleeping well, and obviously knowing how to manage your stress goes along with that. Okay, so that was my little chat about stress and stress management, a little bit of a ramble. Like I said, this is just an ASMR video, so even if it wasn't that interesting, hopefully it's been relaxing. I will just finish my drink before I go. But just another thank you to anyone who has been watching my videos, liking, subscribing and commenting. It does mean a lot, and I really do appreciate